this week's Convex Conversation with me, broadcaster Helen Fospero, a guest who thrives on challenge from the mountain rescue world in France, where grit and resilience are non-negotiable. Caroline Elliott was the first British woman to qualify in all disciplines for the French ski patrol, embarking on this exciting but sometimes perilous path. She was also the first British woman to join the French Fire and Rescue Specialist Mountain Unit as a specialist dog handler, dealing with search and rescue missions after avalanches. In this episode, I'm looking forward to hearing about some of Caroline's life-saving missions in the mountains, the tough training she endured at Enza, the iconic specialist alpine school in Chamonix, the highs and the lows of such a challenging job, and the barriers she's had to overcome. Caroline is a snow and safety consultant. She wrote Fjord's Mountain Mission, featuring her search and rescue retriever Fjord, after he sadly died suddenly in 2020, to educate children in safety. And she speaks internationally about her work, translating valuable lessons learned in the often harsh and hostile mountain environment to corporate and everyday life. Every second counts when saving lives, but teamwork, communication and resilience are important to all of us in whatever we do. Caroline's over here in London from France in our warm and toasty Convex Conversation studio, and actually she probably feels quite at home because it's pretty icy outside in London. Caroline, welcome to Britain.
Thank you very much, Helen. Yeah, this morning it was actually snowing.
I know,
I
was
was like, what is going on here?
Did you feel quite at home?
I did. Well, it was sleet, so.
I was going to say, when it's sleet, we all grind to a halt, don't we? If we get a centimetre of snow in London or the UK, then we're done for, really. Your life is a world away from most of our experiences and work environments, Caroline. Can we start by perhaps you giving us a broad idea of what your search and rescue work involves and what you do?
So, probably the seed was sown for the rescue side of things when I was doing, actually, please don't laugh, ski ballet and aerials.
Oh,
very
ski
80s.
Ballet and
ski ballet
aerials.
is great.
Wow.
Yeah,
Actually quite brave for that, I'm guessing.
Wearing your Walkman and shaking your ponytail. So I ended up on a glacier in Austria doing ski jumping, and I stupidly left my ski ballet skis on, and I did a jumping competition, and I ended up spiral fracturing my leg. So I screamed the whole mountain down, ended up in a rescue sled. A helicopter came in. I've got a great picture of me with a Hawaiian kind of baseball cap on my head and smiling big time because I was doped up to my eyeballs and morphine. And I was helicoptered out and spent 3 weeks in hospital, major surgery, then also nearly lost my leg due to compartment syndrome, when your limb fills up with blood. And cut long story short, within 6 months, thanks to a great physio in Germany, I was living in Munich at the time, learning German. I was back on the ski slopes. But in the meantime, I had 6 months of physio and got into loads of nightclubs for free in Munich. Sie wollen tanzen. And I was like, yeah, natürlich. And I had a great time. So yeah, I was back on the skis in 6 months after. And I think that was when the seed was sown, that I really did like the idea of helping people, because without that incredible team coming in to picking me off the hill, and then the incredible medical team, and then the physio team, I wouldn't have got back on my skis in those 6 months. So that's when I think things started for me.
Do you think when you were lying there recovering that you just had that time to reflect on how grateful you were and how lucky you were that they acted in the way that they did and saved you and got you safely broken, but safely off the mountain?
Exactly.
So was that when you started to really think what an incredible profession perhaps that is, when you had that time to think about it? For sure. And I was actually in the hospital. I shared a room with a lady who'd come off a motorbike and broken her back. And it was just kind of those moments when it's very emotionally charged and you're injured and you're trying to get through it. It's emotionally tough. If you don't have the correct team around you, or the team which are listening to you on a medical and also emotional basis, you're not going to get through stuff like that. So I thought that's where it started. I did do ski instructing after for a while, looking after children in Austria on ski slopes. It was great fun. Loved it. Absolutely adored it. After my studies, I went to Australia. That's when I trained up in ski patrol. In Australia? It's funny, isn't it? We don't really think of Australia as the location where you would train for that kind of thing.
So, as an Australian would say, not far from Sydney, because 6 hours for them is nothing. So I worked ski instructing there, but also at the same time, I learnt my whole profession in ski patrol. So I did probably about 2 years patrolling. And I came out with my qualifications, was very proud of myself because it was pretty hardcore. I got back to Europe after my 2 years in Australia and said to the French, I'd like to work in patrol. And they were like, no. They looked at the kangaroos on the certificate with the skis. And they're like, it's a kangaroo. And I'm like, yes, it's a kangaroo. And they're like, well, no, you have to, if you want to come and work in France, you have to redo everything. We're not going to take it as an equivalent qualification. So you are most welcome to come into our system, but start from the ski test. So the challenge was thrown in front of me, and being a person who loves a challenge, I was like, well, why not?
You took on. And is that when you went to Chamonix and studied at what is a very prestigious school in your world, isn't it?
Yeah, the Chamonix school, that was the second level. So in France, you've got 3 levels of ski patrol or pista secourista. The first level I did in Andorra. So I actually did my first level in Spanish with Chileans and Argentinians and some French.
And no kangaroos.
No kangaroos, no. And then actually, so that was 2007. And then I think it was a good couple of years later, 2011, that I went to Chamonix to the École Nationale de Skisme. And I did my 3 weeks training there.
What was that like? Brutal, I'm guessing.
Well, it wasn't. It's a lot of pressure to learn. Everything changes each year. They do revise the courses, but at the end of the day, it was a lot of in-depth studies of snow, understanding how snow works as such with risk management, avalanches, reading maps, rescue, crevasse rescue. Yeah, it was full on. It was a beautiful place to stay though. You're obviously looking up the Guil de Midi, and there was just 3 girls, and typically, as it goes, 3 girls out of 20 guys. So it was a challenge, and me being the only Brit, it was tough. But I got through, and at the same time I had my avalanche dog as a puppy, and I had to leave him. So that was also quite heart-wrenching.
Oh gosh, that must have been really hard. And what was the crevasse training like when you were at the school there? Was it the first time you'd done that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's the first time I've done it. I mean, I've done rescue off edges, drop-offs, but not in crevasse, because we all know in a crevasse, it's one of those areas where once you go down, if you shout, someone's only going to hear you if you're actually physically above that hole, that crevasse. So when you're lowered down and you're learning the techniques, your head's going, I'm going down to this kind of icy tomb. Do not let me fall. Obviously, they won't. We were surrounded by some very experienced people. So part of the PGHM, which is the High Mountain Rescue Police Unit in Chamonix. So they taught us some great techniques. It was actually a lot of fun. So we were going down crevasses, but they weren't that enormous, because obviously it's a training course. But yeah, that was one thing. It didn't faze me as much. I think more for me was the pressure when we were looking for transceivers in the snow within a limited amount of time, because you've got to pull people out of avalanches within a very short time with a good survival rate. So I think the pressure was there, and linguistically it was sometimes a little bit tricky for me, but it was good fun, those 3 weeks.
So at the time, Fjord was a puppy. Fjord was
I had to leave him, bless him.
Rescue dog. So you were already going down that avalanche path then. Tell me a bit about Fjord and what you were doing in terms of your avalanche training.
So Fjord, we picked up the age of 3 months. And it's a bit like this morning, actually. It reminded me a bit of when we went to collect him from the north of France, from where I was living in the Pyrenees. It took 10 hours. And as soon as we got there was a massive snowstorm. It was also like the temperatures reversed. It should be down in the south, it's cold. And I was like, there's a big snowstorm and I'm going to pick up a puppy. I got there was only 2 males. And up until last season, no females were allowed in avalanche rescue in France.
Really?
Yeah. It was
in terms of the dogs?
Yeah.
Why is that? Do we know why that is?
There was an avalanche which historically went wrong, and there was a female, I think she was at the end of her season, or she was on heat, and the 2 male dogs, or the dogs who were present, they didn't do what they should have done because the female obviously put them off their work. So remove the kind of, the element which is going to cause an issue, so remove the female side.
Thank goodness they didn't do that with grown-ups then. Wouldn't be sitting here, Caroline.
Whereas in Sweden, Switzerland, Italy, these mountainous countries of high risk, they use females. So yeah, I think they've realised that you can train males with females. So
and am I right in thinking that Fjord's training for all this kind of work, for search and rescue work, started at 3 months?
Yeah. I actually only had choice from the litter of 2 dogs. One was extremely rounded, should we say? And I was just like, no, I don't want the rounded one. Because he's the one who's going to be looking for food all the time. So I got the one which is a little bit more active, dynamic, and that's what we look for in a working dog, is a dog which can react and is always searching for doing naughty things, because we know they're actually going to be capable of going out there and doing the work. So we start with 3 months. There's a lot of play. So they become focused on their toy or a rag. They associate finding someone with their toy. Visually, they see the person and they get given a toy, and little by little we'll slowly hide that person. So in a snow hole, for example, someone will jump in a snow hole and they will put their arm out and shake the toy at the dog, and the dog will come and roll, grab, then little by little we'll close that hole up, and then they'll suddenly go, wait a minute, I can't see that person who's got my toy. So then their nose will kick in, and then they will understand that they're using their nose. And that's what a dog uses. Their first sense is their nose.
And is that the dog's main role in search and rescue, to find people who have been covered in an avalanche?
Their aim is finding someone, and they find someone with their nose. So they're looking for a concentration of smell. And that concentration of smell will indicate to us that there's something, or generally, obviously, it has to be live human scent as opposed to a cadaver, a person who's passed away or died. So the dog will come in, he'll start scratching, and it's not directly always on that person. It can be a couple of meters below. If the snow is very wet, it'll filtrate down. Very air-filled snow, dry snow, like you get in continental North America, it will change the way the snow comes up. And it takes the dog about 20 to 30 minutes before the smell will reach the top for 1 meter. So if you've got 2 meters down, it'll take nearly an hour. And we say you've got a 15-minute chance of a very high level of survival if we pull you out within 15 minutes. A lot of the time they say there's comments about dogs in resorts, which they go, well, they're not very competent, are they? Because they never find the people. Dogs from outside who've flown in with the helicopters or come in with transport, they will then find the person underneath or the people underneath because the smell's had the time to come through.
To come up. Oh, I see. And the bond between you and a dog like Fjord must be incredible, is it?
Oh, the bond you have if you work obviously on animal signs as opposed to the way we communicate as a human. Obviously 7% is words, but a dog can pick up on a lot more than we actually realise. So when I would get an alert, the adrenaline would course through my veins and I'll be giving off a chemical reaction, and the dog will understand that there's fear or kind of a readiness for me. I know my alerts, we need to go and work. And then the dog then will take other indications. He'll see the rescue bag, he'll see the uniform go on, and immediately he's just like, whoa, bring it on. Because he knows at the end of the day, he's actually off to find his toy. That's all he thinks he's going to go and do is look for a toy.
And perhaps be rewarded afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. So the toy, and bring it on, get some dog biscuits. I mean, it's very simplified. My dog loved obviously human contact, but in a real life avalanche situation, that dog will not get human contact because the person is going to be potentially polytraumatized. So the dog, as soon as the dog starts scratching, that's it. We pull the dogs out and then we go in with our search methods. Even for drug dogs or explosive dogs, they're looking for their reward at the end of the day.
Can you tell us about a mission or two that involve Fjord? And avalanches are something we all hope we'll never come across if we're lucky enough to go and do a bit of skiing, but I can't even imagine what it's like. Can you take us to a rescue, Caroline, and give us an idea of what happens and perhaps a real life example of a successful one or a difficult one?
We had around about 2014. I was on my day off. I get a call from the emergency centre and my beeper goes off to start with. It's like a beeper, it's screeching just life. And then I was sat on my sofa. I was actually tired, to be honest. I had a cold, but the emergency beeper goes off and then I get the call from the emergency centre, and I knew immediately when I saw the number come up, I was just like, because I was just tired. And they're like, Caroline, are you in the resort? And I'm like, why? And they go, well, there's an avalanche. And I was like, I should have been there to start with. It's my resort, but I was on my day off. And they said, are you available? I was like, of course I'm available, even though I'd rather sit and watch TV. I was like, especially then they said to me, it's a whole family in the avalanche.
Wow.
And at that point, it's just like, I'm sorry, but daytime TV, it just has to be turned off.
Yeah, exactly.
So how quickly can you get to the hospital? Because the hospital's where the helicopter was coming in to bring in they pick up the doctor with 2 mountain rescue guys or girls. And so I got there within 10 minutes. I actually live very near the hospital. So the dog, myself, dog in the harness, muzzle into the helicopter. It took us to the resort. It takes us about 10 minutes. It's actually quite quick in a helicopter. But we couldn't get up to the avalanche site due to cloud cover. And we tried couple of times and the helicopter was shaking and vibrating, and I was just like, I'm not happy with this, and I'm trying not to give off the fear to my dog because then he potentially won't work. But generally Fjord, he loved the helicopter. He used to fall asleep.
Did he?
Yeah. He was just like, used to burst into sleep as like a cradle. So we had to abort mission. Then it was adapt to plan B, which is what you do in the emergency services. You go out with an idea in your head what you're going to have to do, and then it actually has to change pretty quickly, and you need to be reactive and go with it. So plan B was be taken up by a vehicle to the site. So that's what we did. We arrived and there was about probably 30, 40 people already there searching. By the time I get there, the parents are free. So the father, I think, came out first on the mother, and they were looking on for us to find their 2 daughters. and the 2 daughters were under, and this would have been over an hour and a half. By the time I got there, probably about an hour, by the time the alert and time you get yourself and the time we got up the hill. So I go down my dog, another dog handler's actually already there with his German Shepherd called Sum, and they find the oldest daughter. So she's pulled free, but we know there's still the youngest. She's 4.
She's 4 years old.
4 years old. None of them have
Caroline.
transceivers on them because they're on a road which was shut due to avalanche danger. So the resort was shut due to avalanche danger. So there was a big sign there to everyone to not go anywhere. And so they were walking in a road which was shut. So the avalanche had taken them off. They were in a place they shouldn't have been. The 4-year-old, she was under, and I was with Fjord. The snow was pretty awful because it was very wet snow. So I was walking down. I was going up to my kind of hip area. So I was difficulty walking. Eventually get down. They send Fjord up. My colleague's dog, Sum, starts to scratch. And as soon as the dog starts to scratch, it's called an indication. So they'll start wagging their tail or barking or scratching at the snow. And he said, come up, bring guide Fjord up now and see if he can do a confirmation. So it's a confirmation indication. So went up and Fjord started to show interest in the area. So very quickly pulled the dogs out and used probes. And probing is like a very long kind of pole, 2 meters 40. And that's when they felt a body. So they start digging in a specific way to become nearer to the element which she found underneath the snow. And I remember to this day when they actually clear the snow from this thing which we found, we don't know at that point it's going to be a person. You just know there's an object under which is feeling like a person. And I remember hearing a little cry. And it's that point we're like, wow, the whole family has come out due to the whole teamwork. She was hypothermic. She was 31 degrees temperature. I say 4. And it was over 2 hours.
So she was super lucky.
Super lucky, and start asking questions which you shouldn't do, but you do in your kind of profession, going, why did she survive? Whereas over 2 hours, it completely messes the stats for that year of avalanche. Because normally at the time we do time, persons underneath, the depth of the snow. I think she was under nearly 2 meters. She came out and the family, they realised that they shouldn't have been there, and naturally they felt very guilty. But they were naturally, I mean, you can imagine. Well, you probably can't imagine watching a rescue team trying to pull out your children when you've taken them down a road they shouldn't have been on. So,
what was it like when you saw her pulled out and realised that she'd made it, and you saw the family's relief too?
Oh, it's a massive relief. We train a lot for very few avalanches, actually, really. And I'd actually had been called to one just after passing my 2-week training in the Alps. And I got given the call. It was just a couple of days after I'd arrived back. And I had a horrible situation. I'd actually been smacked in the face by my ex-boyfriend. And I couldn't physically speak. So I actually answered the call from the emergency centre. And they said, are you in the resort? And again, it was in my resort. And I was like, no, I can't actually. I actually physically couldn't speak. And they're like, what's happened? And I told them, and the empathy flowed. The person who was just like, he didn't know what to say. And so I could say, oh, really sorry. That was for a 14-year-old. So they had to bring another dog team in from outside. He never survived.
Oh, gosh.
He was under the avalanche fracture line was over 2 meters. Again, he didn't have a transceiver on him. He had a GoPro, so it filmed everything. So I'd say to anyone out there, if you are going skiing, you've got youngsters who want to go off-piste. If money is an issue, just choose the transceiver. You obviously got to be trained to know how they work, and you just don't go off just like that. But over a GoPro, because a GoPro is just going to film everything.
So for those who don't know, what is a transceiver?
A very small kind of electronic box you put underneath your clothes, or now some can be put in trouser legs if it's a reinforced pocket, and they send off a signal. And then with another transceiver, you can put it into search mode. And there's 5, 6 numerous brands out there, but they can all interact with each other.
So it makes it easier for you as rescuers.
No, we all can go in and quickly find someone.
So serious skiers that do a lot of off-piste will probably be equipped with those
they should
kinds
be. I mean,
of things.
being equipped is one thing, but if you don't know how to use it and you don't know how to search with it, then it's debatable. It's good to be wearing one, but I would say if you don't know how to use it, you shouldn't even be going off-piste.
How dangerous are those situations for you? Because it's very difficult if you've never witnessed an avalanche other than perhaps seen something similar on television. You're going into a situation where Mother Nature's just done her thing. And presumably it's a dangerous terrain for the rescuers, is it, going in?
It is, but we can have a secondary avalanche on top. when it's come down, it has stabilised the snow layers, and that's why we bomb in the mornings in ski patrol. We go up and go into certain areas, which are sensitive areas, which are areas where snow can accumulate through wind or through lots of different reasons, and we'll release the pack of snow, which will stop an avalanche occurring if someone was to go on that. But yeah, when we go into avalanche rescues, there are inherent risks for us. I mean, I was actually asked by my head of patrol at one point, there was an avalanche which occurred. It was released naturally. The visibility was very low, and we knew there was a chance that there was going to be a secondary one. And he wanted actually for me to go to the site of the avalanche and just push my dog in. And this person, well, anyway, this is one of my patrol bosses. The previous one was like my father, whereas this one, I was not going to risk my life, my dog's life either. There'd be no one witnessed in the avalanche. And I actually made that decision. You don't make yourself a victim because someone else is already in. It's like anything in the rescue services, you're not going to make yourself vulnerable to if you can avoid another accident occurring. So,
how do you personally, Caroline, manage risk when you're in those situations? Because your job, as I said in the introduction, I mean, there are times when it is really perilous and your life can be on the line as well while you're trying to save the lives of others. But how do you square that away with yourself? And are there coping mechanisms or aspects of your character that deal with that risk?
A lot of the time, work with emergency services that when you go into a certain situation, for me, it's like going into a film. At the end of something, I will come back. And those pictures, I mean, even to this day, and I were talking about the avalanche, I still have the picture of the avalanche. I keep myself safe in the fact that I have to deal with when I make a decision not to go and do something, I'm not going to go and do it. Even if my head of patrol turns and says, you do it. And he goes, I'm head of patrol, so you do it. This is like, well, no. If I don't deem that as a safe option, I'm the avalanche dog handler. I'm the person who's experienced an avalanche. So therefore, I will make a calculated decision on that risk if I'm going in or not. And I'm not going to put other people at risk. I mean, we all work as a team. With the bombing in the mornings, for example, we work together. And if we deem an area which is not safe enough to go into and we're going to get caught out, we won't go in. And then they'll just have to keep the area shut until it naturally goes. But I mean, from a psychological aspect, it's difficult. And still to this day, the avalanche, which I couldn't attend due to receiving some domestic violence, I still question myself whether if I'd been there, because I would have been in resort, would I have managed to find the 14-year-old? But you can do as much as you can, but we're not superheroes at the end of the day.
I'm sure you do seem superheroes to a lot of people. I know that safety is really important to you, and I'm looking at a copy of the beautiful book that you've written. You brought the soft back version in, Fjord's Mountain Mission, beautifully illustrated, the gorgeous picture of Fjord on the front with his helmet and ski goggles on and a helicopter and mountains in the...
He obviously did put helmets on.
The background. I think it's been some artistic license.
No, I actually did put a helmet on it one day as a photo for Instagram.
But it's beautifully illustrated, and it's a children's book, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's all about safety. What prompted you to write this? It's gorgeous, actually.
Prompted me to write it was I was responsible to do education in the resort because no one wanted to do it. And they're like, Karen, you got the dog, so go down and do it. So a lot of the ski patrols don't want to talk to anyone. They're quite happy to go, and it's kind of that profession that you veer away from ski instructor because you're not really a people person, potentially. So I was like, I'd love to go down and teach the kids. They love the dog, and the dog, he used to cause havoc. Fjord used to jump on kids and do some really random things. But
he's gorgeous.
He's gorgeous. So yeah, I was okay. Children love it, but that's only 300 children I've actually managed to reach this season. So when Fjord passed dramatically and drastically, bless him, he collapsed just after an avalanche training. He'd had basically spent a couple of years eating socks because he was bored because I returned to the UK. My world just stopped as if someone had cut my limb off when he died, and I wasn't even with him. And the vet kind of called me up, the fire brigade vet, and he said, oh, the operation was a success, Caroline, but his heart didn't survive the shock. What would you like doing with the body? Would you like it cremated?
Oh, dear.
And in one sentence, I was just like... So anyway, it was very, very tough. So I decided to put everything down into a book, put all my emotions in, write about all the funny things he did, because he did some very funny things, did Fjord, and keep him alive in that way. And he could carry on keeping children safe on the slopes. And it's a fun book. The original version was English, and now it's published in France, and it's in German and Swedish, and got another Spanish and Italian ready to go at some point.
What were the key messages, do you think, that were really important to get across to youngsters?
There's lots of things in the book. For me, it's very important that they actually learn the basics of the signs and the 10 FIS rules, code of conduct, as in what you should do to keep yourself safe and keep others safe. And unfortunately, a lot of ski schools sometimes don't have the time to teach all the people who come through their doors. So learn the essentials before you even get there. And it's already consolidated in your head before. So you'll know when a sign comes up. And when the sign says, shut means shut. Because if you go down that slope and you have an accident, one, your insurance is void. And helping the dog, people love dogs. And the dog guides you around the resort and he does funny things so the children can relate to it. It's a lot more less dry than a normal kind of educational book. It's based on real life.
And I'd imagine it was quite helpful and cathartic in a way because,
completely.
As you say, you felt you'd lost a limb. That is, any dog and its owner has an incredible bond, but you were out there and relying on each other, I'm guessing, in many ways.
For sure. He was a great comfort for me in many ways. I mean, I've now have a same breed of dog, a female. I couldn't until last year train, now she's too old, in Avalanche Rescue. So she's a bedbug dog. She keeps an eye on me and the bond is incredible. When you work a dog, it's incredible.
Have you actually ever been in an avalanche yourself, Caroline? I know you've responded and you've been there to help after the avalanche, but given the work you do and the bombings to let the avalanche off, have you ever experienced that yourself?
Yeah, I've been on it's more like a slough, so it's a slide of snow. So when you go into an area and the whole thing starts moving with you, but it was only up to my waist. But it's enough to realise that when you're in it, it just takes you. And nature is definitely the queen, so to speak, and she will decide what she's going to do.
When you're bombing areas to get rid of that snowfall, how do you work out where you need to go? And is there a danger there when you're going to set the bombings off? Are you in delicate areas of mountain and snow?
Yeah, the system in France is called a PIDA. And that's a plan d'intervention de déclenchement des avalanches. So it basically means an intervention plan for setting avalanches off. And it's actually very detailed. So it's like a map. So you have areas you go in and sometimes you have to go out in a different area. And it's all set up to keep us safe. They're called the points de tir. So that's the areas which are specifically around a resort. You have like 30 or 35, 40 bombing sites. Sounds like a bit extreme. And you go in there with your buddy, so to speak, and you'll manually set off charges. I mean, there's other things which set off these snow accumulations. You've got the Gazex, which are big metal tubes. You'll hear them at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock. So it's not ski patrol up at 2, 3 in the morning when people are coming out of nightclubs. It's actually these machines going off. But yeah, no, it's all very controlled.
It's quite spectacular to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I love that side of things. I mean, bombing I did because I actually wanted to understand the bombing course. I did because I wanted to understand how snow works. And it's not something I go out of my way and go, yeah, if someone said, like, for example, my head of patrol, Caroline, are you free to bomb the next day? And if there was someone who wanted to do it more than me, I'd go, I'll let whatever Jean-Jacques go before me because I prefer to sleep, to be honest.
You prefer to sleep?
I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. But my big thing was my dog handling. My snow studies also was part of the weather forecasting team. So I'd go in and evaluate the snowpack. And I love that because it's quite scientific. You go and look at different grains. So I think it's all the whole bomb destruction kind of thing and chemicals. And there is a risk. We have patrollers a couple of years. There's a couple in life. They died. And after that, the change of the procedure, you can't go up and bomb with a partner, so to speak, because both of them died. I think they left children. And then someone else, you put the charge between your legs when you're actually tying it, and then you're putting the detonator in. And some detonators it's very rare, but they can be faulty. And I think that's how it went. I don't know the full investigation, but the guy lost his legs.
Oh gosh. So there
is a
danger
risk.
in all of it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all calculated and we only hear about the bad things.
Yeah. Do you think you were drawn to this kind of work because it's so meaningful? It really counts, doesn't it? You are some days saving lives.
I've always wanted to be, and I always have been in career. My kind of line of career has been caring for people and trying to make a difference. And there are days like even now where I think when I hear incidents in the Alps where not in a resort where I'm working, and I'm like going, really? Why did they do that? The general public and we as ski patrol rescue unit, we go in and we try and give every hint to everyone to advise you and make you safe and help you. And people just don't listen to or don't read the signs, and they just carry on, and then they get caught out. So it's a difficult one because I want to do good, but then I feel that sometimes the stuff which we do put in place and what we do is ignored, and then you end up having to help people regardless. So it's
you speak internationally, and I think in your line of work there must be so many skills and lessons that we could all benefit from. Working as a team is key in your line of work. Communication is so important. When you're talking in the corporate world, how do they translate into other people's lives who aren't working in with the same backdrop as you've been working in?
Avalanche Rescue is very high pressure. Got a very short time limit to go into a very dangerous area to help people. So we spend months and months preparing. So it's about preparation. It's about repetition of our skill set, constantly going over. And then actually at that point, you've got to be able to be clear in your messages to each other or to your canine companion what you need. So you go in, you've got to be clear. And then at that point, when all those elements are together, the cohesion occurs and you work well, like on the Avalanche, we pulled out the whole family. And I'd say within the whole kind of projects and with the business world, you've got a deadline. If you're taking the same kind of key elements there, you're preparing, you're going over, you're taking people who are skilled in one area, you're reinforcing their talents, not constantly focusing on the areas where they need to improve, which is what we do have in this kind of climate we're in. It's focusing and bringing out the strong elements in a team and being clear and having the environment where you can turn around, because we do in rescue, especially after we have to turn around and ask each other and check in on colleagues, because there is a big burnout. There's a lot of people who are becoming demoralised by their work. They have no interest sometimes in pulling through to the end. And it's having that openness and that management who are quite also happy to hear, not happy, but are welcome in for areas which can be tricky for the whole team. So it's listening and checking in on people. For me, there's very strong parallels between the whole Avalanche Rescue teamwork and working on a project, on a deadline.
And leadership, I'm guessing, as well, is very important, isn't it?
Leadership, for sure. There is, in Avalanche Rescue, there is always one, it's called the cost. There's going to be someone who's the head of operations. That's because there needs to be. But then no one in there is more important than the other. You'd say the doctor, he's more qualified, but he's playing a part in the jigsaw puzzle to make the picture whole. Because if you don't find the person, then the doctor hasn't got the person to try and treat. It's a tricky jigsaw, isn't it? And again, that relates very well to business, I think. Yeah, and it's also the whole gender thing. A lot of the time, unfortunately, because it's quite male-led still, the rescue domain in France, that you can have that area where people would not mention, oh, I'm not doing too good, or I'm feeling under pressure, I'm not sleeping, or you see your colleague going out drinking more, or there's just little kind of triggers going on. But because it's a gender, we are a lot better, thankfully, with men's mental health. But there are areas now we still need to be kinder to each other in a team. And I think if you look at companies worldwide, the ones which really look after their staff, they have staff retention. The staff won't go anywhere. They allow them to sleep for an hour, for example, a siesta, or they've got a nice cafeteria. It's your well-being at the end of the day. I will quite happily go and work for 10 hours in ski patrol if I'm looked after, but I'll quite quickly move to another resort if you're taken care of.
Do you, when you've done a mission, is there a debrief? And I presume if there is, that's very important. Do you look back whether it's been successful or not so successful and work out what worked, what might have been done better? Is that an important aspect too?
For sure.
And are people honest? Do people speak up and say, I could have done this better?
It's not very French, to be honest. No, you don't admit you don't know something. You've got to pretend you know it, and then it's very fun. Yeah, I have difficulty with that. And I obviously, being British, and even though I live in France, I will say I don't understand. They stare at me. You shouldn't be admitting that. But no, in situations like Avalanche Rescue, yes, for sure, we go back, even the multi-agencies, so the other teams, which will come in from the PGHM or CRS Montagne, the other units, and they'll sit down and go, well, this was really good. That area there could be worked on. I'll give you an example. This is not Avalanche, but this is another search and rescue where we actually lost a dog. because there was two people who were reported missing by their wives. They hadn't come back from a hike in the mountains and they couldn't get hold of them. So they weren't answering their phones. So I think in the early hours of the morning, they sent out the dogs, and one of the dogs ended up slipping down the side of a gorge and killed himself. And it was after that, in the morning, these people come down, they'd been in a mountain hut, nice and warm, and they called their wives and say, yeah, we had no phone reception, which is quite often in some areas in the mountains. And that dog passed, who's called Beroy. He was an Australian Shepherd, gorgeous dog. And after that, they said, no, we now will assess the terrain. If there's any potential risks to humans or dogs, what we're going to do is we're going to not allow our teams to go out until the daylight.
In your profession, I think it's fair to say you've been a trailblazer and the first British woman in different aspects of your field in France. What have been the barriers that you've had to try and break down, perhaps being a woman and culturally and things like that? What have been the challenges for you?
I think the fact that I'm female, being British, because obviously there's not very many big mountains, and it's like, well, why are you coming over here and how can you ski? And actually I can sometimes, to joke, I actually roll up with my stretcher sometimes and they hear my voice and I go, don't worry, I've just learned to ski. And they look at the horror. And I just, obviously when people, I can joke with them, obviously I know that, otherwise I'd scare too many people. But I was also in a team where it was not a particularly nice environment and I had to succumb bullying. Everything I did was never good enough, and it was made out that I had just had a good dog. I was like, well, a good dog, it needs to be looked after too. So yeah, I had to overcome a lot of stuff, but it's made me stronger as an individual. And it's made me realise that I'm not going to accept certain behaviour and I walk away from it now and protect myself. So,
and you said as well that humour is part of your, I think you said humour is part of your rescue kit. Humour's been very important, hasn't it, for those difficult days?
Oh, for sure. I'm doing my last season this winter. The last couple of years I've just gone in to do a holiday cover, and every time I go into a resort they always come back, they go, oh, Caroline, come back. And I mean, I had loads of resorts want me back this winter, and I've actually said no, I actually want to go back to a nice quiet one. Well, it's not actually that quiet, because I go in, I have a giggle, have a laugh, but I work very diligent and I take my work really seriously. But I think you've got to have a certain element of fun within its limits, and humour does break some of the moments where it can be tough. Yeah, for sure.
And also you've built a reputation now, which must also help, because people know who you are. So you're not the new British female coming in. And I wish they'd seen you doing your ballet, your aerial skiing, which I just have to ask, what on earth is that like? I mean, I love a little bit of skiing, but I look at people doing things like that and think there has to be a first time when, yes, you can start small, but there is a first time when those skis leave the safety of the
Yeah,
piste.
we did it in water. I mean,
you did it in water?
Yeah. No, I was a gymnast. I was in a gymnastic team, regional Essex. It was Harlow gymnastics team, Bush something anyway. And so it was great. I naturally went into ski ballet. For jumping, as I said, it's into water. And I did the water training in Germany. I remember with the Dutch teams, and it was very funny. I mean, it was not that funny, but in the sense that my coach said, so Caroline, what can you see when you go over the ramp? I was like, nothing. He was like, all right, you got to open your eyes. I was like, no, I can't, I'm scared. And that's when at that point, I was like, forget this ski jumping. It's not going to be for you, because if you're going to get to the Olympic level, you've got to do 3. At that time, it was 3 twisting somersaults. I was like, if I'm scared to even do 1 and I'm shutting my eyes, I think I'm in the wrong thing.
But you did it, but then in the snow. What was that like for the first time? When you have to commit to it. There's no changing your mind halfway through that. You say that,
but in water, there's a couple of. I remember there's some films of me going up the ramp and kicking my legs like a duck, because I actually didn't want to go round.
But on snow, what was it like when you really did it properly?
You have to. It's big focus. It's like any discipline now. You have to visualise, focus, and self-belief.
Did you enjoy it? Obviously, before things went a bit wrong, but did you enjoy what you did?
No, I enjoyed it. I loved it. But again, you know why I loved it? It's because the team. We used to train with some really fun people, really fun. The Dutch were really great. Brits really great. It's not like alpine racing. It's not like where you hear of stories that people are undoing people's bindings and doing things which we've never. If someone fell down, they were like, "Come on, get up again, Caroline." Everyone was cheering. It was such a great atmosphere, and that's why I loved it. Because I think I'd been in a thing where people watch turning you back to see if they were doing something to your equipment. I'd have hated that.
Oh, that sounds awful. That sounds like one of those dreadful ice skating films where people are doing things to the blades or the laces or something. Do we all have an inner avalanche, do you think, inside us that we can call upon in times of need?
I think we all got a capacity to do anything we want, but we need to have the belief. I think a lot of why I've got where I've got is my self-belief and determination and passion. And an avalanche, I look at avalanches and they're such beautiful things, even though they cause such destruction. I call it the white monster. Yeah, they say she because in French is une avalanche. So I look at them and I watch films of them and I'm like, wow. But I'm like, no, you can't say wow but yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't really know anything more to say on that point. But yeah, I think I've got where I've got this kind of, I mean, an avalanche for you, what would you say from your side, your point of view?
I don't know really, and I'm beginning to wonder whether I misread that somewhere, but I thought you talked about inner avalanche because I don't actually know what an inner avalanche is. I'm feeling I'm having an inner avalanche right now as the interview collapses around my ears. Have you used that phrase, inner avalanche, or have I made that up?
I don't know if I have.
I think you should steal that for your next inspirational speech and tell people how we
have
find
you got an inner avalanche?
Or inner avalanche.
I've got an avalanche inside me because I'm actually can be quite feisty. Yes, maybe that's what it is.
What is next for you now, Caroline? You said that you're going to embark upon your last season, but what else is out there in this world? What are the next steps for you and the next things you want to do?
This is it for me. I've done enough seasons now, and I think there's a lot more I can do with my expertise and help people in another way. And you've also got to open the door to the younger kind of generation to come in and thrive. And so, yeah, it's time to take a different path, and I'm very excited about the whole keynote international stage. As I've developed an Avalanche Advantage keynote where I discuss what we discussed previously about bringing the skills we need in avalanche rescue to the corporate world. In creation at the moment is avalanche simulation camps. So making team building a little bit different as opposed to in different areas people do now, but this will actually be in the snow. So we'll take a couple of days and bring people to an area which will be an avalanche simulation. There'll be other elements there where they'll test their team skills, they'll test to be working under pressure, they'll be in the cold, they get to stay in very large dark holes, so they hide for the dogs. So I'll be testing their limits, also hopefully some cold water dipping. I'm a great believer in that for protecting injury and also for mind over matter and focus. And other small kind of sides of mountains we'll look at on those 2 days. So it's in creation mode at the moment. And it's either a 2 to 3 day team building exercise because it is going to be in the snow. It's going to be in the Alps. So you be flying over if you're not based in that area, or it could be longer. We can do longer ones if a company has that time to devote to their team, which would be great for that team.
I've got a title for it.
Go on then.
It's Find Your Inner Avalanche. There we go.
Yay!
That does sound very exciting, and it sounds like it's very different, and there will be lots of learnings for people from all walks of life, because nothing brings you perhaps closer together than when you're absolutely out of your comfort zone and doing something different. And there's frightening aspects to it. I suppose if you're in the dark snow hole for the first time, that's quite scary, and you'll see all sides of people's character come out in a way that perhaps doesn't happen in an office environment. So I wish you luck with that. And I was kind of thinking about volunteering to come on one, but I'm not sure.
Oh no, the snow holes are great.
I'm not sure I'm that bold.
I used to ask always to go in, because we have to actually go in them ourselves so we know how it feels like. And I used to always volunteer to go after my lunch when we train for 2 days. I sit every month in the winter, and I choose to go in the black holes after lunch so I could have a sleep.
You like your sleep, don't you, Caroline? All your exciting life, and you mentioned sleep quite a lot. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for finding us. You actually found the Convex Conversation through your mountaineer friend, Bonita Norris. She was the youngest British woman at the time, I think, to summit Everest. And she was a wonderful speaker. So it's been fascinating that you've transported us properly into your world. And maybe I'll meet you out there someday in the snowy wild.
No, I don't actually say something like that, so it kind of puts me in a situation where I think I might have to go and rescue you. So come over to one of our simulation camps.
One of your simulations. I have actually been skied headfirst down a mountain in, I don't know what you call them, but where you're strapped into a stretcher and somebody skis you down headfirst. And that was in my 20s. It's not something I'd necessarily like to repeat. But it's been great to meet you, and best of luck with everything. And
thank you.
And thank you for sharing stories about Fjord as well and bringing the book in.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Caroline Elliott, the first British woman to follow the Avalanche Mountain Rescue path in France. Download and subscribe to our series at convex.podbean.com or search The Convex Conversation on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to yours. I'll be back next week with former diplomat and now author Nicholas Hopton, so join me then.